It appears that millions of dollars in taxpayer funding in the federal coronavirus payroll protection program ended up in the hands of anti-gay businesses, schools, and organizations. Now, this is according to an analysis of the payments by NBC News. And so this is horrible. Now, the funds examined by NBC were paid to groups and businesses with either a history of anti-LGBTQ advocacy or policies that explicitly discriminate against the community. So this isn't like, oh, we had an outdated policy and, that happened to have led to discrimination in one or two cases. No, these are people that actively, or companies, I should say, that actively went out and antagonized a group of people. That's horrible. Horrible. All right, so now NBC News had listed 17 of the entities in its investigation. 7 of them, the American College of Pediatricians, American Family Association, Center for Family and Human Rights, that's ironic, Church Militant / St. Michael's Media, St. Michelle's Media, Liberty Counsel, Pacific Justice Institute, and the Ruth Institute have been listed as anti-LGBTQ hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So, all right. Notice how there's a lot of them that have the word family in them, okay? Look, that's how you can tell that they're a hate group. Not because, family's bad. It's because the word has been co-opted by right-wingers, by extreme right-wingers that are, homophobic, transphobic, et cetera, et cetera. And really, the only family they look out for are white families. So back to the money here, right? So now those 7 companies themselves were paid a total of $2.5 million in federal public taxpayer money, according to records. One of them, the American Family Association, which, hosts Brian Fisher. I haven't done a Brian Fisher segment in 3 years. Because it turns out the insane stuff that he said before that was oh, that's crazy. Now that's Republican mainline talking points against people that are LGBTQ+. Okay. So now that organization was given $1.4 million in Paycheck Protection Program funding that they will now use to fight the quote unquote homosexual agenda. Oh, lovely. Another conservative, the conservative legal organization Liberty Counsel took $428,000 in COVID-19 aid and advocates for anti-LGBT discrimination under the guise of religious liberty, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. The organization made headlines last year working to remove protections from gay people from an anti-lynching bill. So, we don't want people to get lynched unless, it's just gay people. Then we're totally okay with that. That's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. All right, more. Among other anti-gay organizations taking taxpayer money is the Emmanuel Christian School in Northern Virginia, where it just so happens that Karen Pence, the wife of Mike Pence, I have to do it.
Mike Pounds.
Okay. That received $724,900 in aid from the federal government. The school prohibits employees, by the way, from engaging in or condoning homosexual or lesbian sexual activity and transgender identity, NBC reported last year. School warns in its parental agreement that it may refuse admission or discontinue enrollment of a student whose household condones sexual immorality, such as homosexual activity or bisexual activity. Catholic Social Services is another one, was given $2 million in Paycheck Protection Program aid, and they will be going before the Supreme Court over their policy over not considering same-sex couples as foster parents. Lovely. Imagine being one of those children in foster care that needs a home, right? And not being able to go to a loving home because there's 2 moms or 2 dads. I mean, that's horrible. This group should not be getting public money in order to assist in their discrimination. None of these groups should. No one. No one. And see, that gets to the root of the PPP program itself. Okay. There's no oversight. None. Which is why so much of the money went to wealthy corporations and scammers who spent millions on things like luxury cars and homes. And understand that was the whole purpose. They said, well, Republicans, Mnuchin fought to have no oversight, to have limited oversight, which is weird because Republicans always say that they're fiscally responsible. But when it comes to coronavirus aid, they're like, no, we don't want any oversight, so they can hand out this money like candy. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. Now, larger companies, including dozens of national chains, actually received the maximum amount allowed under the program of about $10 million, which they did not need. The Post reported only 28% of the money was doled out in amounts of less than $150,000. So not a lot going to small businesses. The data also shows this program primarily benefited the well-banked and well-lawyered at the expense of small businesses, of the small businesses it was supposed to benefit. This is according to Liz Hempowitz, Director of Public Policy for the Project on Government Oversight. Yeah. And again, this is not what we were sold. Okay. Those who voted for this in order to help small businesses. And of course, because of the urgency of the CARES Act, which was immediately passed through Congress. But again, shockingly, after it was passed, now we find out that most of that help went to corporations. Because they always do, right? They always get the help. Now, that's corruption. Okay, this is the corruption that's in the system. So now, there are some people on the left that are very, very angry at the politicians that voted for this. Even politicians that are on our side. And I can understand that. But let me say this. I don't blame Bernie Sanders, who voted for this, or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. In the same bill that is full of this corporate welfare, you had stimulus checks that are desperately needed right now. People need this money. They are losing their homes. They are losing their homes. They're not able to pay their utility bills. They are going hungry. There is massive demand at food banks. There are big problems going on. Okay, and then there were $600 unemployment checks, which is the same thing. They were and are needed desperately by the American people. Okay, and they're needed again. Understand though that in this country, in America, the corruption is so deep that in order to help the American people just a little bit, you have to pass through a bill that is stuffed full of corporate welfare. That's the problem with the system. And if you don't give the corporations their due, what they want, the people will be left with nothing. And this is not something that one or two politicians can fix. Understand that this can only be fixed, I think, by the people holding the entire government accountable. The corruption is in the system. It's in the system, which is why you have to replace the system, not just the people in it. Because you keep replacing the people, the system doesn't get fixed. That said, I'm not saying that there isn't a role for electoral politics. There's a big role here. And in order to make real changes in the system, we need 100 Bernie Sanders. And so let's get on that. Primaries. But also you have to have outside pressure. That outside pressure could take the form of a general strike. Something that can force that pressure onto the system itself and help tear it down. Because if we don't, well, we can look forward to more stimulus that doesn't actually go to the American people, but just goes to more corporate welfare. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.